Hello, Spikes, and welcome to the Gauntlet Wrap-Up for the Starvo Gauntlet. As you may have seen from the previous videos, Cayleigh, my esteemed guest here, was the one joining me for all 5 of the games, piloting Starvo, or Bravo, star of the show.
Our big gay dad.
It's our. Collectively. It takes a village.
Including you, audience.
Normally it takes a village to raise a child, but Starvo is the village.
He is the village.
And
have you seen him? He's so built.
Again, he's like 6 blocks wide. His deep V goes down to the Marianas Trench. It's crazy. The proportions on this guy are astronomical.
Oh no.
But yeah, so we, again, this is the wrap up for the Gauntlet. So you will have seen, ostensibly, all 5 of the games.
And if you haven't, go watch those videos. Come back.
Yeah, they're in the description or up in the corner or something. I don't know.
Top corner, probably.
At this point, it's just a meme. I'm pretty sure I know where the things show up, but I'm never going to admit it. But yeah, so we're going to go over each of the games. We've sort of determined that just because of how Starvo plays, it's hard to sort of really pin down like a TSN turning point for each of the games. Not to say that the deck isn't inspired or anything, but the big turns that Starvo has, they tend to be the same from game to game. And while there are still decisions to be made in like here and there, at least for me on the receiving end, it just feels the same when you're getting crippling crushed over and over again. But we will be going over it, and I would absolutely love to hear what you guys thought of the games in the comments. And of course, we're going to be discussing them right now. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
So game 1 was versus Rhino. And as with all of the other games, this was a win for Starvo. This one,
spoiler alert, all 5 games went to Starvo.
Yes. So this is a pretty clean 5-0. Again, you should already know that if you were doing your homework. But I think in general, going into this, Rhino is just kind of a bad matchup into what Starvo wants to do. I think one of the most effective ways to play against Starvo is to tax their hand in some way, to actually put on enough pressure that makes them feel obligated to block with cards from their hand so that they can't keep things back and use them to fuse for his effect.
Yeah, for much of that game, it was anytime there was an Intimidate trigger waiting to happen, I just sort of looked at my hand, figured out, what do I want to crown now, so that whenever the Intimidate does happen, I don't care, I'm getting those back. Because I could just sort of, whatever gets banished, I don't care.
Yeah, it's sort of a problem that Intimidate has as like a core function. Just the fact that it's kind of tough for Rhino specifically to leverage that, because normally when you're attacking in for large amounts of damage in every other deck, you're able to use that as also sort of a discard. It sort of deals like 2 sides of tempo, where you're pressuring your opponent's life total and you're removing resources and possibilities from them. But for Rhino, unless you're really making a really like a genuinely awkward situation against somebody like Starvo, they'll just usually take the damage unless it's lethal, and swing back for more. Yeah.
You're attacking me for 8? Great. Here's 10.
Yeah. Here's 10 with Dominate.
With Dominate.
And go again. Like I do think that Rhino is in not a terrible spot, but, and it will be in a better spot once Starvo goes to the big red barn in the sky. But I do think, I don't want to be too salty about it, but I do think that just generally that is a bad matchup. And we did see that pretty convincingly in that game. But, you know, that just is what it is. Not everybody can have a great matchup, so.
No. Yeah. I mean, Starvo can.
Yeah. Yes.
Starvo absolutely has bad matchups.
Yes, against a good Prism player. Like
it's rough.
I think it's pretty miserable. But there is also still just the high roll possibility. But there is that for most decks as well. I wouldn't say that's specifically a Starvo Prism thing. Like every deck can have a high roll versus every other deck.
Absolutely.
But it's just about the consistency and how impactful the high roll is. Because, you know, if you're looking between decks, like a Bolton high roll where you're going off like completely perfectly with Lumina Ascension is going to be different than, you know, like a Dorinthea high roll. It's going to be slightly different, especially because it depends on what stage of the game it is, but also just how generally impactful it is. Even though they're both warriors and they can both have some pretty impactful turns, Bolton, if he's able to go off like fully, that is a devastating combo, but he also has lower lows. It's less consistent, which is, you know, that's one of the reasons that Starvo was kind of, I don't want to say hated, because I don't think that that's fair. As much as it's, you know, it's not 100% fun always to play against it, it is still just a deck. And, you know, like there's nothing wrong with that. Genuinely, I'm not trying to be salty about Starvo in any capacity. He was just slightly overtuned and did steal some games with his hero power. I think one of the things they could have done is just tune back the hero power a bit. Maybe in testing, but I think we were talking about it earlier. In testing, Starvo was being held back by Briar.
Yes.
Which we know from past experiences, Briar was also overtuned.
Yeah, so it was, Bravo was tested in an environment that by the time Bravo was sent to print, that environment no longer existed.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have been reasonable for them to day zero ban Starvo. Maybe they could have hit something out of the deck early.
Like maybe
I don't know.
Crown of Seeds? I think that's a very strong component of the deck.
Absolutely.
But even then, that feels bad too, because then Oldhim loses access to it, and Oldhim uses it pretty fairly.
And at the time of Starvo's release, we didn't yet have the suspend until X.
That's true. That's true.
So I think it was just sort of a confluence of situations that LSS has definitely looked at and has taken steps towards remedying since. But Starvo's just sort of a lesson, if nothing more.
Yeah. And like, once again, that is totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to fault LSS for printing something that's overpowered because, you know, it just does happen. It genuinely does. There's no amount of playtesting that internally that you can do that is more powerful than a worldwide play group.
The collective mind of TCG players. That get their hands on it day one, and it's like, all right, what are we doing? Yeah,
I think I remember seeing within a week or two, somebody came up with a list for Starvo that was like, yeah, I think I'm fusing about 80% of the time.
There was actually, to go on the side tangent of this, there was a GitHub file that was being passed around that was a Starvo calculator. You punched in your ratios of each element. There were checkboxes for if you included pulses, and there was a checkbox for did you crown that turn, and it gave you your perfect percentages.
Yeah. Like, and again, that's the power of like external playtesting. Yeah. Internal playtesting will never, it can't match that.
No developer internally would have made that program.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, so it did happen. Starvo was a little bit overtuned. Briar was also a little bit overtuned. Duskblade was a little bit overtuned. But these are things that they can look at and learn from. And
absolutely.
Sort of the game can evolve from that. And if you don't make these mistakes, then I think the game just sort of
you never learn.
Out. Yeah, and they don't take risks.
Exactly.
Taking risks is totally fine. It leaves for some, you know, maybe some discomfort now when you see things like the Pro Tour, where a lot of the field was Starvo, but then we also saw the dark horses of we had 2 Kanos hit the top 8.
2 Kanos
in a field of Starvos.
And if you've seen my other gauntlet that I guessed it in, I was ecstatic.
Yeah,
Pro Tour weekend when 2 Kanos made top 8.
Yeah, our Discord was popping off. It was crazy.
It was wild.
But yeah, so there is still things to do. There's still places. There's still space to move within that, even if Starvo is a dominating force. Mostly went on that tangent to delay the fact that I have to talk about how I lost the 4 successive games after this. But so game 1 to Rhinar, I do think that was just a bad matchup. Game 2, however, game 2 was Chain. This was also a loss for Chain, a win for Starvo. And this one I want to blame on just bad luck.
Yeah, some of your shackle activations were just Rough?
Yeah.
I think the nicest way I can describe it is it was rough.
Yeah, this is like, I love Chain, but I don't think Chain loves me back. Like, I don't want to be too salty about it, but yeah, it's an abusive relationship right now. I just really want him to notice me, but it's a situation that I've actually found myself in relatively frequently playing Chain, where I draw all of my blood debt cards and banish all of my non-blood debt cards. So it doesn't really forward my game plan as much as I would like it to. And the deck is sort of built around that, where you're utilizing the fact that you have two hands and you can successfully hit your non-attacks and your attacks like every turn, because you're able to sort of complement it with both sides. But yeah, just bad beats.
Yeah.
I got hit with probably a fused Okanold that game.
Probably.
Yeah, I think I got hit with
something
a fused
got
Okanold.
Fused somewhere.
I think I probably got hit with a fused Okanold once per game. I think that's probably a fair...
I don't think I had an Okanold during the Lexi.
Oh, well, I'll take the moral victory. But yeah, I think that Chain does actually have a decent matchup into Starvo. It's a little bit rough because Crown of Seeds is just such a consistent way to prevent ping damage. And I think that's one of the strengths of Chain, is being able to attack like 3 or 4 times a turn, following it up with a Rosetta Thorn. But all of those are low sources of damage. So if you're able to block 1 or 2 of the big things and then like, Null Rune the Arcane and then also Crown the Arcane, then that puts me in a really awkward position for, like we saw with the Spellbound Creepers, where I'm just not able to keep them around.
Yeah.
That one, I wasn't able to do Arcane that turn anyway, but that sort of environment makes it a little bit tough to leverage the advantage that Creepers could give you. So it is a little bit of, I think it is still favored towards Starvo a bit, but I think depending on your Shackle RNG, I think that Chain actually has a pretty good shot at putting on enough pressure.
Well, and Chain won the Pro Tour.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So there's the Chain RNG for you.
Yes, and that was the same deck that I was playing today, the one that won the Pro Tour. And of course, I have the exact same power level and skill level as the guy who won the Pro Tour. So simply luck, no misplays whatsoever.
Disclaimer, we are not pros.
I haven't even seen a Pro Tour, let alone played in one. But yeah, I think that it wasn't quite as bad as it could be better than it looked. It's not always that bad, I think. But all in all, it was still a game. It was still a good game. I appreciate every game.
Yeah.
Including the next one, Dorinthea. Dorinthea was, by all accounts, just a relatively solid game. I had a couple of rough hands where I had to take tempo off because I just had a bunch of reds. And if I was able to... I don't know, if I had chosen instead to play Tunic over Courage, it feels weird because I don't get the 2 block up front. But in situations like where like I had found myself in, instead of having to pitch one of my cards to like play a Steelblade Shunt or something to actually effectively block, I could instead use a Tunic resource to use that and sort of keep card economy, keep stuff going so that I could continue to put on pressure. This game, I do remember you put a lot of time, effort, and eventually success into preventing counters on the Dawnblade.
Dodging Dawnblade early matters so much in the Dorinthea matchup.
Yeah.
We have a player in our local community who likes to play Dorinthea a lot in Blitz. And so I learned very quickly that letting Dawnblade get any momentum in the first few turns of the game will ruin you.
Yep.
So note to all you players out there, if you're playing against Dorinthea, don't let that Dawnblade get a counter unless you absolutely have to.
Yep. Yeah, but even the times that I think it got a total of 2 counters over the game, but not at the same time. I think it got 1 counter and then you blocked one of them, and then and then I got another counter and then I lost it again.
Yeah.
But the thing is with that, and it was very well, the threat was identified very, very quickly, and I think that was really important because if I was at any point able to get a counter on early, it makes the breakpoints for blocking so much more awkward.
Yep.
Like 3
4 base is nuts.
Yeah, 3 is like a fine amount to deal with, but even 1 counter brings it to 4, and then with attack reactions, you're dealing with 7, which is another breakpoint up. Like,
it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brutal.
Yeah. So you did a spectacular job managing that. It was, I believe, what won you the game, because I had some pretty strong openers. Like
absolutely. And they were just
Spoils of War and Steelblade Supremacy and a bunch of other things, and I just wasn't able to get through.
I got lucky on some of my defense reaction draws, being just like, oh, this is coming in for 5. All right, well, staunch response. It's blocking for 7. Do you have the reaction?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't. This is just another hit and run. But yeah, all in all, I think that was actually a pretty solid game. I think I could have maybe teched a little bit differently. The other thing that I will say for all of these games is I am not very good at sideboarding. I have played mostly Blitz, where you don't have to sideboard. So there are probably some things that I could have done to the lists themselves to tune them to be a little bit better for these matches. But in general, I think I did okay. I think it's just, again, a testament, a love letter, a love story to Starvo, and how
our big gay dad.
He will always be within our hearts, within our spines,
being crushed.
But yeah, so anyway, all in all, I think the Dory game was pretty solid. However,
on the note of sideboarding, I too find sideboarding incredibly daunting. And as Bill has seen in my deck box, I actually have sideboard guides just written on Pokemon Energy that just tell me what to take out in specific matchups, because I, on the fly, will not remember that.
No. It's really tough, because for some of those sideboard guides, you see things where it's like, oh, well, this is a key card that's instrumental to my strategy. But in this matchup, you take out the reds because you don't need them. Or like you take out like 2 yellows and a blue. And it's like, I could never do that math in my head and make sure that all my ratios are right and everything. So most of the time I just sort of default to, do I think this card is impactful in this matchup? Which is sort of the very surface level of it. But yeah, all in all, sideboarding is an art. And it's an art that I am not good at.
The small cheat to my deck, there are 6 cards that just gain an action point. Those are there exclusively for Prism. And there are 9 defense reactions. Some combination of those can come out of the deck every game. We also have 1 exposed to the elements exclusively for the mirror to break their crown of seeds. If you're not against another starter, take that out. Easy. Easy cuts. That's how you sideboard. You just take you play cards that are easy to remove.
Yes. The last thing I do want to say, though, is you did mention that the sideboard guides are on Pokemon Energy.
They are written on Pokemon Energy.
One thing that you didn't mention is that they are color-coded to heroes.
They are color-coded.
Which is
Prism is on an electric energy because it's like sort of the light yellowish. Lexi's on a water energy because ice. Chain's on a dark energy. Stuff like that. It's a fun little thing that I enjoy, and it helps me visually remember, just like, okay, I'm going into this matchup. Oh, there's the color. And they're also sorted alphabetically.
So it's a good
system.
Yeah, it's a good system.
Y'all can try that at home if you feel like it's useful. Pokemon Energy, that's the way to go.
Just remember that you're not allowed to consult them within the game. Before the game, it's fine. In the game, no.
Once you present your deck list, you can no longer reference your sideboard or sideboarding guides.
Yes, but before and after the game, go nuts. It's crazy.
It's great.
Anyway, I would love to say last but not least for this one, but it was only the 4th game.
But it was the best game.
This was like by far unequivocally the best game of the series versus Katsu. This was very down to the wire, but you did end up winning out on it.
It was tense.
It was very tense.
I was very nervous a lot of that time.
It was, there was, and I mentioned this in the sort of outro for that video. There was one misstep that I made where I didn't use my my breaking scales. And what that would have done specifically, there wasn't any situation where I could have used it for lethal. There's like maybe a situation where I could have, if I remember I attacked with a red Rising Knee Thrust instead of a red Fluster Fist, when they're functionally exactly the same card, but Fluster Fist has 1 more attack. If I had attacked with that and had breaking scales, I would have been able to attack for a total of 5, but then you would have also been able to react to it a little bit better. So it's not guaranteed that would have done anything, but
it creates different situations, and you potentially would have put me to 1 a step earlier.
Exactly. Yeah. I could have put you into Kodachi lethal range 1 turn earlier, which would have, or maybe even just 1 attack earlier. And that may have
completely shifted it.
Yeah, it could have generated just that little bit more pressure.
Because there was, specifically, I remember one turn where I did not have Crown. I had Rampart, I did not have Crown. So I had to block the second Kodachi from hand.
Yep.
And that created a potential opening for you to kill me.
Yep.
But I think because I had hit you with something the previous time, I don't remember the exact details of it, but I was able to not die.
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah.
And that gave me just enough tempo to swing in with hammer, cause you to block to limit your resources, and then arsenal. And then I had that basically Rampart blocks a Kodachi, Crown blocks a Kodachi. I have those covered off of a single yellow or blue.
Yes. Yeah. And then you were able to just keep back the fuse elements in your hand, use all of those, and then attack with one of them. And so you only needed the 3-card hand.
Well, that was the game that very masterfully, very proud. I'm super proud of it.
True.
We hit second cycle, and I got to exactly what I was pitch stacking, and it feels like a good level up moment.
Yeah, it worked out. It was something that you were keeping an eye on, that you were actually actively working towards, and it worked.
It worked.
It did the thing.
When your opponent's at 1, a dominated attack ends the game.
It feels bad, by the way.
It feels great. I don't know what you're talking about. It feels great.
Yeah, I guess a dominated attack at 1 feels great when you're at 1 with the dominated attack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it feels pretty good, right? But
play more dominate. Play more Guardian.
Yes, specifically Guardian, not Starvo though.
Nope, he's been banned for several weeks now.
But yeah, all in all, that game was spectacular. That game actually has maybe made me a little bit more convinced to play more Katsu in CC, because it felt really good and it was a really cool deck.
It was super cool.
It was a lot of fun. I got to do the Lord of Wind combo. That's a cool card.
We both got to do exactly what we want to.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was a sweet game.
I was able to do my big combo and you were able to do your big combo, and you also pitch stacked.
Exactly.
So it was
sweet.
Phenomenal. Like absolute A++ TV. Fantastic. And then finally, to wrap up the series here, we had Starvo versus Lexi. Once again, a win for Starvo, a loss for Lexi. This one I will also chalk up to just trying out a different list that I wasn't super familiar with. I am very familiar with Lexi, but specifically in a Voltaire shell, where you're leveraging things like Bolt and Shot, and you're able to use Voltaire to reliably give your attacks go again, to sort of go wide that way. This list was a Death Dealer Snapshot. It wasn't full combo. It probably could be full combo if you decided to go late enough with it and just pitch stack all of your snapshots.
It was the full 9 snapshots.
It was the full 9, yeah. Which is the combo, but supplementing that was just regular aggro cards. Like there was also Flock of the Featherwalkers and Enlightened Strikes, and Snatch is also in that list. So it just felt like, at least just as a composition, it felt more like sort of an aggro deck that is able to either high roll with the snapshot combo or use that as sort of additional pressure during the turns. And again, I can visualize that, I can see it. I just don't think that it's something that, especially in this matchup, I don't think it worked very well. I think it's sort of the same thing with Rhino, where with Lexi, especially when you're doing that, you're trying to wait around for the right time to do a big thing. And you really don't have that against Starvo. You don't have that luxury.
You don't have that time. And at any random point, half your hand can just be gone.
Yes, and half your life can just be gone. Like you just fuse a Crippling Crush and then follow it up with a hammer, and that's 17.
Yep.
Like that's 17 damage.
Fusing a Crippling Crush usually won't have the follow-up because it costs 7.
True, yeah.
But like Oakenold, 11 plus Icy Hammer being 15.
Yeah,
it is brutal.
Yeah, it ends up
absolutely
being
brutal.
Quite a bit. So yeah, I think at least the way that I was trying to play it, I could be absolutely wrong. I'm willing to accept that, but the way that I thought that was supposed to be played was you're supposed to at least wait around a little bit for things to sort of congeal, like a plan to actually become real.
Congeal is a very weird choice of words.
I'm going to use whatever words I want. I lost all 5 games. You're gonna have to deal with
that's
it.
That's fair. You can have that.
Congeal. But yeah, I tried to get something together and it just didn't quite work out. I think the thing that I learned from that personally is that I like Voltaire and I like Bolt and Shot more than I like Death Dealer.
reasonable.
I like the idea. I just think that Death Dealer feels clunkier. But something that was very interesting was I did get to put a little bit of pressure on you. There was a little bit of sweat.
There absolutely was. Like, if I had 1 or 2 awkward turns, it could have gone very differently.
Yeah, I mean, I did get you down to 10. Some of that was just because you knew that you could take the damage, but like there was when I attacked you with Sleep Dart to try to turn off a Starvo, you like you wouldn't have blocked, I think, that turn at all if I didn't attack you with specifically Sleep Dart.
Yeah,
but you were like, I can't let this happen.
I had the Fuse plus a 4th card. I don't remember exactly what it was because I crowned it, and drew a Lightning Surge as my 4th card. So like, if I didn't have to take that damage, would have loved to. Yeah. That'd be great, because then we get to re-arsenal. But after the Sleep Dart failed to hit, I was just like, hey, I stopped caring. I have Fuse sitting in my hand for this Break Ground coming in for 8, followed by a hammer. Yeah, and it just. Yeah. At some point, Starvo just stops caring. Yeah,
if it's not lethal, it straight up does not matter.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that I actually do. I do think that Lexi does have a good matchup into Guardian in general, because the on-hit effects are very strong.
Every on-hit in Ranger matters.
Yeah, it's all really good. I think that Ice Lexi probably has the best possible matchup into Guardian because, you know, if you have something like Shock Charmers or you've fused a Frazzle earlier in the turn so that you're able to get multiple hits off on, I forget what the ice arrow, it's like Blizzard Bolt, the one that whenever it deals damage, they get a Frostbite. You can give a Starvo player 2 Frostbite tokens off of 1 attack. And that's like impactful. That is a real thing. Like, even if it just means that they can't attack with their hammer, it means you're not taking 4 damage and you're also not getting a Frostbite.
Exactly.
Which can be very instrumental because a lot of those turns where you're coming in for huge amounts of damage with, you know, you're coming in for 8 with a Break Ground or something like that. Those are the turns where you don't necessarily, as the defending player, have to. It's sort of the same mindset where you kind of don't have to care because it's not a Crippling Crush. It's not a Spinal Crush. It's not an Oakenold where it's actively doing something that that will slow you down and stop you. It'll take cards out of your hand or prevent you from getting go again. But it's the hammer. It's the follow-up of the hammer giving the Frostbite that really just like twists it just that little bit more.
It's that cherry on top. Yeah. It's the cherry on top of that devastation cake.
Yeah. And also it's 4. It's an awful break point.
It's like, a great break point.
It's awful. You need to block with 2 cards. But you don't.
I love it.
Because you have Crown of Seeds.
I have Crown of Seeds.
Yeah.
That's what makes the mirror really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now that for this 2-week something interim between it was actually like 6 weeks between the Autumn's Touch ban and the actual implementation of Starvo's Living Legend. The blocks in Starvo are really awkward. Like, there were several points I'm looking at my hand and I'm just like, oh, these are all 2s. If like one bad thing goes wrong, I'm just screwed.
Yeah. That's one of the things that they definitely did to try to balance, I think, Elemental in general, where they made, I think specifically the talented cards mostly block for 2. Because
all the ones that can go in Briar.
Yes.
Because when Briar got her errata for Embodiment of Earth only becoming a once per turn, it was meant to be all right, these things that only block 2 can now be blocking 3.
Yeah.
But in Old Briar, you just stack up 2, 3, 4 embodiments and you're just laughing. Because this one attack blocks for 5.
Yeah, even if you just get 2, all of your cards are now sync below.
Yep.
Like, not really because you don't get the sync, but still, like it's a 1 card block for 4, and we know for a fact that no real cards outside of defense reactions block for 4.
That's intentional game design.
It's intentional because 3 is a very important number, and it's the first break point.
Yep.
Like, past that, you get to 4, and then it's supposed to be, now you have to think about how to block it with more things. With Briar already being an aggro deck, you were able to block with 1 card, and that just ruins it. It ruins everything.
That's a tangent.
Yeah, it is. We are getting a little bit tangenty, but
yeah,
in general,
Starvo's breakpoints are just right where you want them to be.
Starvo's breakpoints are 13.
13's a great breakpoint. Yeah. I love 13.
13 with Dominate and Go Again.
It's great. It's my favorite breakpoint.
Yeah. But anyway, all that being said, This was an absolutely fantastic gauntlet, honestly. It was a very good viewpoint and sort of a portal into seeing kind of exactly how Starvo
got to where it is.
Got to where he is, yeah. Like, it does feel bad, especially, like, Cayleigh, you were very invested in the deck. And so, of course, when you've put that much time and effort into a deck and now you're not able to play it anymore, it does feel bad. But
oh, and I definitely got some personal investment to it. If I can tell one more side story.
Absolutely.
The first 2 weeks after Everfest release, before ProQuest began, everyone was super cagey about deck lists. No one wanted to say anything because then it's out. Then everyone knows what it is. And if you remember several Discord conversations about me stressing for an entire week,
yes, I do
sitting there just ironing out what does my deck want to look like? And I don't know if you remember the one evening we hung out and my first build was garbage.
yes, unfortunately it was.
My first build was terrible.
Yeah, you were pretty. You had the wind taken out of your sails because I was also playing Prism.
Which is already a bad matchup.
It's already a bad matchup, so it felt bad. But then you retooled the deck. You went back. I
stressed about it for a solid week.
Yeah, and then we played again, and you crushed me.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't close.
I've had a personal investment in Starvo for basically that whole time because I had to put in that initial work.
Yeah.
And it felt rewarding by the end.
Yeah.
I've learned this deck and I feel good about this deck. But now it's time to say farewell.
Yeah.
Farewell to our big gay dad, whom we love very much.
Yeah, he will always be in our hearts and
on my playmat.
And in hot jorts.
That was a terrible line.
It's just true. Can we contact Madison and get her to alter his Starvo so that he's wearing jorts? I would like that. I
don't want. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching both this and our gameplay series, and we will see you back again in the next Gauntlet.
Yes, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe.
Oh, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Comment about how you're liking and subscribing, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Spike Feeders on YouTube. Before you close the window, make sure you click subscribe for more great Flesh and Blood content.